I think we need to start today with the tragic and hideous slaughter of 16 innocent civilians out there in Sydney. Once again, innocent bystanders, Jewish families shot down in cold blood by a demonic Islamist terrorist. What was your initial take and reaction of that event, Ben?
Well, I woke up to it on Sunday, reading the news in bed, not knowing initially whether or not the attackers were of a Muslim faith, but suspecting strongly that because a Jewish, the Hanukkah event had been hardcore, it was driven by some kind of Islamist intention. And then, of course, we saw the footage unfold, and we saw precisely what it was up to. It was an attempt to cause as much death and harm as possible to the people who gathered to celebrate peacefully on Bondi Beach. And first thought is obviously for the victims who've just been attacked and those who died and those who will be critically ill or have life-changing injuries for the rest of their lives. But my second thought, and it comes pretty rapidly after the first thought, is how the hell have we allowed this in the West, and I count Australia as part of the West, even though it's in the Far East, you know what I mean? How is it that we in the West have been so hijacked that we have failed to protect our own people? How is it that we've allowed ourselves to be infected by people who wish to do us harm, who don't share the values of peace, coexistence, tolerance, all the things that made this country great? How is it that we've taken these people into our midst and we're not prepared to take any action now, having made that initial mistake? How it is we're not prepared to take any action now to at least rectify the damage that we've done? And shortly after the shootings, we then had the Australian Prime Minister come out and say, first of all, he cited the far right, which was an extraordinary thing to cite, because the far right, as far as I was aware, had absolutely nothing to do with this. It was exactly the same playbook as Starmer after Southport, who came out and started talking about the far right, when actually it was Axel Rudikovano who had done all that, had done the killing, had been effectively a terrorist. But then he also went on to say how gun laws required to be reviewed. And I thought, look, you're missing the point. Guns don't kill people. Yeah. It's the individuals that hold the guns, that pull the triggers. They're the ones who kill people. This isn't a gun law issue. This is an issue of settling our society so that we don't have these threats prevalent within it. That's the question. That's the imperative that needs to be addressed. And our politicians right across the West, including Australia and New Zealand, are not addressing the issue.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Ben. In fact, I did a whole live stream yesterday talking about the guns and the gun laws, and I repeat, your views reflect my own. It's not the guns that did the damage, it's the people that had them in their hands. I mean, I think Keir Starmer, our own Prime Minister, of course, unfortunately, described the events as distressing. I'd say that was a bit of an understatement, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's what we're seeing is something that we're going to increasingly see. Yeah. Extreme violence on the streets of what was otherwise peaceable Western civilization. And we're going to continue to see it, and it's going to be on the rise. And we're creating perfect environment for it. I mean, what do you think those who wish to do damage to us, what conclusions do you think they reach after they see the Prime Minister of Australia completely step around the true causes of it? They'll be emboldened. They'll look at it and go, well, these two guys caused a lot of death, and actually the root cause of their motivation wasn't even cited by the Australian authorities, by the Prime Minister. So we can basically do whatever they want and we won't be challenged. I mean, it's encouraging to be
absolutely. I mean, he went out of his way, didn't he, to avoid the word Islam, completely went out of his way. And as you say, he even deflected using the term far right again, and the threat from the far right, which I think certainly for the Aussie audience, at least, let alone us over here, they weren't absolutely bemused, and the reaction from the
exactly what does the far right have to do with it?
Last night, as always, a brilliant show. Dan was
showing
the reaction of Australian people to
the
mainstream politicians. They were being booed, they were being heckled, they were being shouted at. And then when the lady, I forget her name right now, but she's like Australia's equivalent to Tommy, if you like. When she turned up, she was given a hero's welcome. Why is it with these politicians they just can't see what's unfolding right in front of their very eyes? Why is it then? Are they scared?
Blinded by the light.
Well, I think there are multiple things going on. The first is they've pretty much uniformly bought into the notion that all of humanity is equal, which in some respects, in certain respects, of course, all humanity is equal. But they've taken that equality in their minds to basically assume that all humanity will behave in the way that we behave in the West if they're just shown the way. That if we are warm and welcoming to any individual from any part of the world, they will suddenly become peaceful and have our values and not mean us harm and settle very comfortably and easily into our countries. And that is a fundamental mistake.
Spin everything around
us. Think that people deserve inalienable human rights, and then to make the massive leap from there to assuming that they don't therefore mean us any more harm than we mean them. And what we've done in the West is our politicians have bought that view completely, and having bought that view ideologically, they've basically said, well, in that case, We're prepared to take people from any part of the world, from the depths of Kashmir, from the northwest frontier of Pakistan, from the depths of North Africa.
How come Habib can see all of this?
Many of the people who come from there haven't had any real brush with what you and
None
I
of the elected politicians can. None of them.
And I'm afraid that may be unpleasant for those who buy into this notion here.
Unbelievable.
But we are taking barbarians into the United Kingdom.
Fucking believable.
And if you take barbarians into your bosom, they will do you damage because they are barbaric. And what we managed to do so successfully in the West,
you're not going to change their mind.
An extremely, and I've talked about it before on your show, over hundreds and thousands of years, frankly, we evolved a constitution and cultural setup that is extremely tolerant, extremely generous and kind, but also very, very, very. I'm searching for the. Just give me a second. But very.
If a burglar comes to burgle you,
because
if you haven't got what you want, they'll still burgle you.
It depends on everyone in the West behaving that way.
Yeah.
It's very sensitive. The word I'm looking for is sensitive. It's a sensitive constitutional and cultural setup, and it's not used to being challenged in a muscular way from within, because we all behave in a civilized way. But if you bring something barbaric, something that doesn't recognise our constitutional and cultural settlement that we had evolved over 1,000 odd years, if you bring elements into it which don't recognise it, they will run amok because we're not capable of addressing them in the same strong-handed way, strong-armed way that would be required in order to quell them. Now, you don't see any problems, for example, with Islamism in the United Arab Emirates or in Saudi, for that matter, Saudi Arabia. The people who govern the UAE and Saudi Arabia recognise the challenges posed by barbarians.
We don't want to hurt anybody, and they just want to hurt everybody.
No
Oh yeah, do you remember the
they take down
sausages?
everything with a ton of bricks, and because the barbarians know that there's a strong arm that can absolutely hammer them if they do anything wrong.
Yeah.
The UAE and Saudi can control those elements within their countries, but we're not capable of doing it because that is not our system. And so, in the pursuit of this failed ideology that everyone is equal in every single respect, including their ability to behave in a generous, kind, and Western way. In the pursuit of that failed ideology, effectively what we've done is willfully endanger people in our own countries. I interviewed Douglas Carswell the other day, and he said something very, very good, actually. I didn't agree with everything he said. But he said in order for us to be at peace in the United Kingdom and to have the kind of sensitive, settled, constitutional, cultural makeup that we had become accustomed to, in order for us to have that, we actually need strong men who are prepared to defend our borders and to make sure that barbaric elements do not enter the country.
Absolutely.
Strength somewhere. You either have strength within your country and you treat everyone with a strong arm like the UAE does with its own people, or you have to have strong men on the outside of your country making sure those elements don't get into your country. We used to understand that. Our borders used to be enforced. We understood the importance of our British way of life, our constitution, our people. That's why we went to war in 1939. It was to protect our way of life, it was to protect our people. The British way, not the Nazi German way. And indeed, in many respects, the European way is also not
pretty obvious, really. You think it would go without saying.
And we've forgotten that. In the pursuit of this failed ideology, we have basically taken all our protective armour off and allowed ourselves to be abused.